Good evening.
Good
evening,
evening.
Catherine. How are you?
Good. How are you, Luciana?
I'm running around and exhausted. To be
I bet
honest,
you are. I bet you are.
it's go
Um,
nonstop.
yeah.
So we're back after a little 2 week break
Hiatus.
there. A
Yeah.
hiatus. That's the word I was looking for.
Right.
Hiatus. But we're back with episode 24, which is protecting our right to safe haven.
Yeah. It's kind of going over some old ground, because we talked about the right of self-defense the last time, but that's been a while, so maybe people have forgotten. I don't know.
Right.
We're dealing with the castle doctrine and so forth. Just a quick prayer to the Almighty for making this broadcast possible, a prayer of thanks, and help us to do a good job and bring more people into understanding and not being deceived by
Right.
what we're being told and what we're not being told.
Exactly.
Okay, I think we have talked on different occasions about the castle doctrine, and I wanted to first of all, I want us to be safe in whatever we do, and as safe as possible. I mean, living in the times we're living in, perfect safety is not realistic. Let's just face it. It's not realistic when we're living among people who are in positions of power and who clearly want to do away with us. So, but under the circumstances, I'm trying to get instruction from scripture as well as the history of common law, because I still believe that common law, if we search hard enough for a common law rule that applies, will help us. And the one of the dangers that we face is, as far as a safe haven, it's supposed to be our homes. And when we're traveling, which is supposed to be our constitutionally protected, basic human, God-given right to travel from point A to point B, we're also supposed to be in a safe haven inside of our cars and trucks. And the de factos, the cabal that think they run everything, calls this a reasonable expectation of privacy. Well, it's more than just privacy. It's safety too. And they seem to forget that we're human beings and we need a sense of safety somewhere. Lord knows we can't seek safety in brick and mortar churches anymore.
It's a shame, isn't it?
Isn't it? Isn't it? Um, so I wanted to explore the origin of the castle doctrine, and would you be able to put it up on the screen? I think I sent you the common law castle doctrine, um, the, the version of it as I understand it to be, and that was first developed really in 1628, I think it was, by Lord Coke. Yeah, just like it sounds. Um, and he said basically a man's home is his castle. And later on, in a place where you should feel secure from the outside world. Remember, our common law derives from the common law of the people of England. In 1763, Prime Minister William Pitt, the first Earl of Chatham, said that the poorest man may, in his cottage, bid defiance to all the forces of the crown. Remember, that was the Crown Corporation, still is. It may be frail, its roof may shake, the wind may blow through it, the storm may enter, the rain may enter, but the King of England cannot enter.
Right. Are we on the Castle Doctrine PDF?
Yes.
Okay.
So if the King of England, in other words, if the so-called government cannot enter, then can their lackeys? I don't see how. All right, so if you're posting that,
yeah, I have it up. Catherine, can you see it?
Yeah, let me switch screens. Yeah. Well, first of all, these are signs. These are signs. So let's scroll down. This is signage that is based on our rights under the Castle Doctrine, and we'll flip back to those. But let's scroll down, down further to the blue lettering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Is that you?
I'm sorry?
The siren. I don't usually hear.
Yeah, that was outside.
All right. Okay. All right. Here's basically the common law version. Well, where did it go?
A true fact. That's for
that's a jury instruction for no duty to retreat, which is related to there's stand your ground statutes in their system and Castle Doctrine statutes, and they're related. If you're in your own house and somebody's breaking in, do you have to run away first in order to avoid violence? No. But like any other question, it depends. And that's the jury instruction. Let me give you a worst case scenario that this is going to come up in. And that is, let's say you're in your home and there's a break-in in the middle of the night and you shoot the person. Well, you have a clear right to do that, but it might not be so clear to the local prosecutor. And there's many, many cases of people defending themselves in their homes after a break-in. And I'm talking about a break-in by somebody who doesn't work for the government. And we can address the break-ins that are from people who do work for the government. That's even more difficult. But if it's from even somebody you don't even know that breaks in, you might still run afoul of a zealous prosecutor who wants to prosecute you for defending yourself in your own home. And there's plenty of cases in their system where people are held without bond for months and months and months. The right to speedy trial in their system is just...
It's even gone into years, Catherine. Into years.
Yeah,
so they're pretty much considered guilty until proven innocent, and guilty and sentenced because they're sitting in a jail waiting months and months and months and years before they even have a trial. It's insane.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think Roger Hilligus in Nevada, and he's not even accused of killing anybody. You know, he's his crime is supposed to be taking his mother out of a nursing home, but he's going into his second year of pretrial detainment. Yeah.
This is crazy.
And yeah, so the right to speedy trial is a distant memory. You know, that doesn't really exist anymore.
Exactly.
And they never really explain it. They never explain much of anything that they do. When pressed, I think they would say, well, you know, we're administering admiralty law, admiralty whatever, or we're sometimes I guess they admit that they're a military tribunal, which either explanation is just a cover up for they're committing the crimes of kidnapping and false imprisonment and thievery, particularly where, you know, the thievery is on behalf of their friends, the bail bondsmen, the, you know, the entities that are running private prisons and private jails. Anyway, it's easy to go off on tangents with this stuff, but the basic Castle doctrine says that you have the right to defend your home and your family, even using deadly force. And yeah, I'm just going to read it because I think I sent you the wrong thing. The people who are domiciled on this part of the landmass known as Ohio, this is obviously for Ohio people, are protected by the common law Castle doctrine, and therefore have the right to defend themselves, their home, their private conveyances, their family members, and their guests by the use of any means of self-defense, including without limitation the use of deadly force. We, the people, are not required to retreat when attacked in our homes or our lands. Trespassers have no right to, I just added this sentence, trespassers have no right to search the people's homes with or without a warrant. And with that sentence, you know, I hope to address the cabal members that are doing exactly what the Bible prohibits in Exodus 22, verse 2, which says, if a thief, and is there any question that these corporate agents are engaged in thievery, either personally or through their principals? If a thief be found breaking in and be smitten that he die, there shall be no blood shed for him. There's an assortment of signs, and you can scroll back up and we can deal with those.
Right.
You want to scroll back up?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. Okay, there's a simple no trespassing, but it's a lot more effective if the no trespassing is accompanied by a fee schedule with gradually increasing fees with each trespass. You can put in a statement that any attempt to enter by force will be considered your consent to the following. Remember, even in their world, you can consent to a contract, and therefore be liable under the contract by your conduct. If you were told in advance, this conduct will constitute your acceptance of the proposed contract. Now, I bring this up, and you'll see it at the top. I don't know how many of you may remember. I sure do. Back in early 2021, when Jan Psaki, Cabal agent Jan Psaki, that was speaking on behalf of Slow Joe regarding how desperate they were to get people to take the you know what in the arm. And they were talking about strike forces. Remember that? That was her term, strike forces. That would go door to door.
That's insane.
And I tried to find the video on that for hours today, and it sure seems to be scrubbed.
Yeah, I wish I would have been around. I didn't get off till really late. I would have helped you search for that if I knew you were looking for it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I know it happened because I mean, I remember it, and I remember the concern over it. And now that particular lie is coming back up just in the last few days. Apparently, Slow Joe is now outraged that anyone would ever think that he threatened them with, I think, door-to-door injections, or that he ever made anybody lose their job, or he ever tried to force anybody, to submit to medical treatment against their will. Oh, perish the thought. That never happened, except that it did.
Sure did.
Yep. So for those who think we're, panicking over nothing, I mean, that's been talked about. And if you remember even further back to Katrina, remember Katrina in New Orleans? I do. I remember the door-to-door gun grabs in very affluent parts of New Orleans. Yeah.
Wow. I don't remember. I can't remember that.
Yeah. Military were doing that. They were coming to people's homes, big old, white column, 2-story, antebellum type mansions. Yeah. And those people they could not believe it. But wow. They took their firearms. You betcha.
What did they walk in just searching, or they were registered gun owners and they knew where they were?
I think they must have been registered gun owners, right? Because you register and then that puts a target on you.
Yeah.
So they seemed to know, and there were like a couple of them, and they were like in military fatigues. We're here to take your guns, and no ifs, ands, or buts, about it. And the homeowner was just, totally blindsided. Obviously, nobody was seeing this coming at all. Not then. Anyway, so here's another little zinger you can put on your sign, and of course, for heaven's sake, gate your property and have it locked. It's not going to keep out a SWAT team. I understand that, but it can go a long way toward getting these goons to move on to the next one that isn't so heavily fortified. One sign I've seen says, "There's nothing behind this gate worth dying for."
Right. I've seen those too.
Have you? Good.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Oh, I've seen those around. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got to start getting busy, and of course, anything like this that people are doing is going to be more effective if lots of people are doing it, which is part of the reason that we're going over old ground that we've covered before about the castle doctrine. And I wanted to get into the history. Well, first of all, what do we have now as far as organizations of people in your area who are concerned about crime? This has been, I mean, I was once in a neighborhood watch in Ross County, Ohio, going back to probably about 2002, early 2000s anyway. And, but you want to put up the stuff I have about neighborhood watch?
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
oops, hold on a second.
There's
Yeah,
a
here we
couple
go.
of things. Yeah, I think the first one is the first part of it is the steps, which, I mean, just because this is how they tell us to do it doesn't mean we have to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the neighborhood watch. How do you organize one? Well, start talking to your neighbors. I know. It's and that's the climate we're in now. Is you can hardly talk to your neighbors, or you're afraid to talk to your neighbors. You don't trust your neighbors. You're afraid if you talk to your neighbors about concerns you have, your neighbors are going to who knows what. But can it be much worse? Well, anyway, so you can see the steps: recruit and organize as many neighbors as possible. And, you know, this is to be and you can call it neighborhood watch or crime stoppers or any catchy name, but emphasize that, you know, it's a neighborhood organization. And I see some evidence of this, like in Ohio, the Unbiased Southern Ohio Bulletin Board. There are postings where people will post security camera video of thieves on their property, for example. And yeah, that can lead to getting somebody arrested. And but here's the second step: contact your local law enforcement agency and schedule a meeting. Well, the neighborhood watch I was in was supposed to be associated with that. It was organized by a woman on city council who leaves a lot to be desired as far as actually representing people's interests in Ross County. In any case, you know, your city council is badly compromised. Don't rely on those people for anything. Particularly if you live in a smart city, the city council is totally compromised. Anyway, so-called law enforcement, in other words, this was before we knew they were really private code enforcers, wouldn't show up for, and it talks here about that they might not show up for the first meeting. They never showed up. Well, why should they? This is about stopping crime. That's not what they're about. Their United States Supreme Court, as we've said before, has given them perfect immunity against, they have no duty, no liability for failing to stop crime. None.
You know, Catherine, this reminds me of I think you know a friend of mine, Jennifer from Florida, and her son, I don't know, he's 21 or something, was with her at a store, and he went outside to wait for his mom, and some guy that was acting like he was security for the store, but he wasn't. He was a cashier's, ended up to be a cashier's boyfriend, who was just hanging around there. Ended up pistol whipping Jennifer's son. Okay, and they called police. And first of all, the police started questioning Jennifer and her son, making it look like they were the criminals here. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, after time went by, it was found out they were barely even doing an investigation. It turns out not long after that, her son picked the guy out of a lineup. The police never went and questioned the guy, even knowing where he lived. And it turned, if you ask me, I think this guy, after we looked him up ourselves, we had to turn in all kinds of, we Jennifer sent in all kinds of information to the prosecutor, to the police department, and said, look, you guys have arrested this same guy about 8 different times on drug charges, assault charges, gun charges, and now he's picked out of a lineup, and you guys haven't even gone to question him, arrest him, nothing. And they kept giving him the runaround, giving him the runaround. They never arrested this guy, nothing. And I have a feeling this guy was working with police.
Yeah.
You know, they one of the guys that police was using
For a CI.
yeah, exactly. And so I bring this up because there was a neighborhood watch meeting in Jennifer's area one time, a couple times, and somebody asked her to go. She went, and there's the police officers that were not investigating so you go to a neighborhood watch, and there's the cops that are involved in committing crimes or protecting criminals. I mean, it's insane. It's insane.
Well, for those who have a backbone and don't need to follow the 5 easy steps to forming a neighborhood watch, can still form your own neighborhood group. Probably don't call it neighborhood watch. They probably got that protected with a copyright or trademark. So give it your own name and start organizing. And don't depend on people who work for a private for-profit corporation that masquerades as police that are under no duty to protect you at all. Why would you include them? But that brings us to, what do you do if you apprehend someone? You know that you can't go to them. That's why we need common law courts, folks. That's why we need a common law grand jury. Are you going to continue to have these private code enforcers make you be the criminal? You want to live your lives that way? And contact me if you don't remember the names of the 2 cases. One of them was from the U.S. Supreme Court saying, no, they have no duty. It's not their job to protect you. Even in the middle of you being beaten up, you call them and they don't come. That's perfectly fine. They have no duty to you. Then the 3rd step, I guess, isn't so bad. Discuss community concerns and develop an action plan. All right. Oh, an action plan. If law enforcement is unavailable to come for first meeting, and they probably will be. Well, who cares if they come or they don't come? Better that they don't come because they're part of the problem. In fact, they are the ones that are doing the break-ins. Okay, but you're going to have to address concerns and issues about security in the neighborhood in some other way. And you can discuss till the cows come home, and without real law enforcement, which is going to have to come from the people, like it or not, you're going to have to do it because they won't. And I think I mentioned it a few years back, one of their so-called judges in Ashtabula County, Ohio, admitted that, their job is not to serve you, not to protect you. So arm yourself. You take care of it. That's what he told people. And this,
Yeah.
5-10 years ago. Yeah. And I would say start small. Start on your street. Start on your street. See if you can get even 4 or 5 families. You'd be doing good to get 4 or 5 families. And, there's a book. It's marketed, called something like Preserving the Old Ways. And it talks about effective ways to patrol a street, because you're not going to stay up all night patrolling your own house. But if you have, say, a street from one end to the other, preferably a cul-de-sac, where you can patrol just go up and down the street. Don't be obviously armed. And you can see if anything unusual is going on. And just the fact that somebody's walking around at 3 a.m. and that looks like they know how to take care of themselves can go a long way toward dispelling any threat. And then, with 4 or 5 people, you can switch off and not have one person have the burden of doing it all the time. You might want to have, if something really bad happens that one man or woman can't handle it, they can call in the others. And anyway, so that you can respond faster than any donut eating cop, even if they were inclined to do so, which they're not. Okay, then all right, we did the action plan. Your group should create a plan on how to work toward lessening the impact of the top 3 concerns of neighbors, which is probably going to be things like vandalism, maybe open drug dealing, and car break-ins, maybe even home break-ins. If word gets out that you have a group that's organized and consistent in what you're doing, particularly if you're backed up with a common law court. If you do this in Ohio, you will be backed up with a common law court. It would be better if you're also backed up with a common law grand jury, but we're not there yet. That takes 25 people, and looks like we don't have that yet. Yeah.
I saw that you had placed in here some neighborhood watch groups that were listed on Dun and Bradstreet.
Yeah. That's just to show you that most of the existing neighborhood watch groups that are tied in to private code enforcers are corporations themselves. So what does that tell you?
Right.
Yeah, I just wanted to have that on the. Is that on the screen now?
Yes, they are.
All right. Yeah, I did a copy and paste of all the neighborhood watches that I could find in Ohio, and I just did neighborhood watch in Ohio, and that's there's like 5 of them that popped up. Middleburg Heights, there's one in Dublin, one in Canton, one in Beloit, Ohio.
Yeah, I've never heard of Beloit yet, but
I haven't either.
Brook Park is not far from me.
Okay. Yeah, well, you might want to see if they're doing anything. Just because, they registered as a corporation doesn't mean they've done anything probably in years. And if they're associated with private code enforcers called cops, you can probably bet that a lot of enthusiasm at the beginning has long since been dissipated.
Right.
So, all right. So, again, start small, maybe 1 or 2 streets, enough to get 4 or 5 people, because you want to be able to cover patrolling so that you're only having to do it maybe 1 day a week. And then have regular meetings, and that'll keep you up to date on crime issues that have happened in the previous week, or maybe you don't need to meet that often, but you can keep tabs on what's going on and what to watch out for, and how to protect yourself. You can talk about signage, as we've talked about. Then there's there in the past with Neighborhood Watch, there have been a couple of instances where during the Neighborhood Watch, one of the people doing patrol, well, there's been a couple of them, ended up shooting a perpetrator. And of course they ran into, even though it was an approved Neighborhood Watch, corporate and everything else, they were still prosecuted vigorously, and the man was acquitted. And then the feds got in on it and tried to, after a couple of acquittals, and I can mention the name. Yeah, it was a guy. I'll remember back in 2012, a fatal shooting of a teenager by the name of Trayvon Martin. And there's been a lot of info and disinfo on that by George Zimmerman, who is a Neighborhood Watch coordinator. So they charged him with second-degree murder. He was acquitted of all charges, but that wasn't enough. The U.S. Department of Justice, they're not interested in any other injustices, but they jumped right in to prosecute him for a hate crime, and they ended up dropping the charges. So, the cabal doesn't like it when they have competition for crime enforcement, even though they're not doing crime enforcement. Another incident involved a Neighborhood Watch guy, Eliyahu Verdensheim, who was charged with second-degree assault and false imprisonment for beating and pinning down a teenager he thought was suspicious in 2010. he got a suspended sentence. But, I'm sure we went through quite an ordeal. And he might have actually gone overboard in enforcing, his rights. This is not being in a neighborhood watch does not give you the authority to just, become aggressive yourself that goes beyond reasonable self-defense. I think it's important that you disable the offender. So you might want to have means of doing that without harming them. And you can take them to the private code enforcers and see what they do, but they're probably going to have it all reversed about who was the perpetrator and who was the victim.
Right.
So, which is why, it's good to have other people doing this with you. And usually, just your presence is going to be enough. And it's just a good idea to show that, people are paying attention and they are paying attention to their surroundings. Okay. Now,
you put committees of safety from 1774 in there.
Yeah. Which is
quote, a quote from the Maryland resolution.
Right. Yeah. The committees of safety originally, at the time of our original revolution against England, were kind of, they served a lot of purposes beyond just security. They traded information with each other about sources of goods and services. They were kind of like a community Facebook page, really. Anyway, you want to read that resolution from the Maryland Committee of Safety?
Sure. It says, a quote from the Maryland resolution: resolved unanimously, as our opposition to the settled plan of the British administration to enslave America will be strengthened by a union of all ranks of men in this province, we do most earnestly recommend that all former differences about religion or politics and all private animosities and quarrels of every kind from henceforth cease and be forever buried in oblivion. And we entreat, we conjure every man by his duty to God, his country, and his posterity, cordially to unite in defense of our common rights and liberties.
Yeah, some things just don't seem to change much. They had problems with internal dissension as well as we do. Let's see. Then I wanted to remind people of the case of Ex parte Milligan, 71 United States 2, 1866. And that in that case, there was an attempt to impose a military tribunal on a Southern man. And they wanted to give him the death penalty, apparently for daring to, to oppose the government of the North. And remember why we're doing this, folks. The Constitution at one time said, well, this is for purposes of establishing a government by consent. It's been a long time since we've had government by consent. And, that could have been something we could have signed on for. But, and what does that mean, government by consent? It means everybody has to consent. If it's just government by consent of the majority, then that's just another form of tyranny. If it's government by consent of the strongest people, that's just tyranny. It's got to be everybody, or it's not consent. Particularly if they call upon you to support that government that you disagree with. They can't, like during the Civil War, they wanted to label people as traitors and criminals for no longer supporting the government of the North. That's just called political dissent. It doesn't make you a traitor. A traitor is when you've been a friend and secretly plot against your friend. No, the South made it very clear, and many of us would do well to make it very clear, we oppose this government, so-called. Don't dare say that we are the traitors. We openly disagree with this government, so-called, and do not agree to live under it. It's a government of criminals, and we're not going to live under that. Not by our consent, we're not.
Yeah. When you say things like that, I think of people that I even know that are very still unfamiliar or have not been damaged by like pretty much everyone I know, but there are still a few who have not been met with this type of tyranny and seen how even police officers are criminals, and they wouldn't even their jaws would drop that we're even saying that. They put these public servants up on a pedestal as if they're gods and think they can do no wrong, and it's a shame, because one day it's going to come knocking on their door, and it's
not just them. If we buy into the glorification of the military and the police, that's just murder and thievery with another name. We're going to be just as, and the world probably considers us just as complicit in what they're doing if we do not stand up. And what does God consider it if we don't stand up to murderers and thieves, whatever they choose to call themselves?
Right. Mary Louise Allen on I think it's on one of her YouTube page, and she probably has a couple other pages, and she has a video. I think it might be called Me Too, or she has a video where she shows several different women that have met with some really bad stuff by police and by other government officials, and even died at their hands. And I wish we could put together, even just in Ohio, because we know so many, and we should do if we could get them all together and do a show one day and just have them speak just 2 minutes, 1 or 2 minutes of what has been done to them. I mean, the people that actually don't know what's going on and how this is happening and just wouldn't believe it. I think they need to.
I guess we still have to get into exposure.
Yeah, exactly. More and more exposure. I wonder, where have these people been? where are they hiding under a rock that they don't see what's going on? Because there's so many of us. I
They
mean,
won't
there's
listen.
so
I'm afraid
many.
if they still don't know, they're never going to know, though.
They're just
I was talking to some people today, and they don't want to know. They really don't.
you're right. They don't want to know. They don't want to hear it. Their lives are perfect, just the way, I I, I think a lot of us have lost family members, have lost friends because of what we're standing up for. And I'll never forget a friend I used to have, and she said to me one day, she said, she said, I really just, I don't want to hear it anymore. I just don't want to get involved. She said, she literally said, my life is perfect right now. My child is perfect. My life is perfect. I don't want them messing with me. So I don't want to get involved. I don't want to look into it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about it. So she pretty much admitted that even by getting involved, that she runs the risk of them targeting her. So yeah, that's a friend, right?
Well, and I bet her life isn't as perfect as she likes to think it is either.
Of course not. Of course not. And when a child who's at school now is a teenager that gets roughed up by a cop or yanked out of school by CPS for some reason, by police and CPS, or something like that happens, she'll be looking for answers then.
Yeah, and she'll know. And she'll, there'll be all this protest of, I didn't do anything wrong. Well, neither did these other people.
Exactly.
But
Neither did any of us.
Right. Because it's not about doing something wrong. When they have no duty to protect you, they know you didn't do anything wrong. They're just setting you up. They don't arrest people who are committing criminal acts for the most part, unless they have some other reason to do that. They actually do better financially, and that's what they're there for, is revenue generation. If they arrest the innocent, and that's what they do. They something and the same deal with CPS. CPS agents have no duty to protect children either. So what are they doing? They're making money for the corporation. That's what they're doing. And they're keeping the people in a state of terror. Even people that nothing has happened to their child yet.
Right.
They know. They've got to know at some level.
Mm-hmm. Ron Armstrong in the comments said, Civil War was officially the end of the Constitution, at least in their eyes. At least in their eyes.
Well, if only the Constitution really had protected us. As far as what we're dealing with today, the right to be secure in our papers and our homes. I think you can post that. You got the Fourth Amendment. I think that was the first email I sent you.
Yeah.
That they were already taking rights away while looking like they were giving us rights. Constitution didn't give us squat. We already had rights. Yeah, I did want to get into this about the Fourth Amendment, because that's the dumbed down version of the Castle Doctrine. They had to put restrictions on it. They couldn't allow the people to have their common law. Amendment 4, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause. supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What? What's this about searches and seizures? Well, they got to be reasonable. What the hell business is it of a private for-profit corporation to send its agents out to search my house? For what? They're not trying to solve a crime. That's not what they're there for. Because they're nosy? Because they want to steal stuff? What is this? And I looked at one of their so-called decisions, U.S. Supreme Court, Johnson versus United States, explaining about the warrant requirement. And everybody can get all excited. Oh, the Fourth Amendment is going to protect us, because they have to have a warrant. And then it's got to be upon probable cause. Well, they can just say, well, we had probable cause. They don't even do that anymore. Probable cause has gotten dumbed down to be a reasonable, articulable suspicion. What?
Oh my God. I know.
And it doesn't, the Fourth Amendment doesn't talk about.
Or we got a phone call. Somebody said, so we had to get a warrant because someone said they saw. Well, who? Oh, well, we can't give you that information.
Or somebody saw you going 61 in a 60 mile per hour speed limit. That's what this is degenerating into. But everybody who wants to worship the Fourth Amendment, or if we just get back to that Constitution, we'll be fine. No, we won't. Because the Fourth Amendment, clear as day, acknowledges that the government sometimes can go into your house and search and then take what they find. Yeah. Anyways, so this is what they say in Johnson versus United States, 333 U.S. 10. This is back in 1948. They were doing this to us. Justice Jackson explained the warrant requirement in the context of a home search. The point of the Fourth Amendment, which often is not grasped by zealous officers, he's protecting us against zealous officers, is not that it denies law enforcement, who aren't law enforcement and weren't law enforcement then, the support of the usual inferences which reasonable men draw from evidence. Well, wait a minute. That's what they're doing in our houses? They're there to gather evidence? Oh, that would be evidence they plan on using against us? What about the Fifth Amendment? Isn't that supposed to protect us against self-incrimination? Well, if they're breaking into our houses and looking for stuff that they can incriminate us with, then the Fourth Amendment is violating the Fifth, isn't it? Looks that way to me anyway. What do I know? So he says the right of the officer to thrust themselves into a home is a grave concern, not only to the individual, but to society, which chooses to dwell in reasonable security and freedom from surveillance. When the right of privacy must reasonably, see, it's not a right to be safe. It's become, it's just a right of privacy. Well, were you doing anything at home you needed privacy for? Why can't we come in and search? When the right of privacy must reasonably yield to the right of search. What? What right of search? What is he talking about? And he's balanced. They love to balance. The right of privacy, not the right to be safe, not the right to be, your home is your castle. No, not that. The right to privacy. Almost like secrecy. Wait a minute. Sometimes it must yield to the right of the government to search and then to seize what they find and use it against you. What right is that? In what universe are they operating? No, that Fourth Amendment didn't give us anything. good riddance to it. So anyway, I wanted to get that out there and also remind people of there is no police power. That's a concept made up by the black-robed bar members that are sitting in judgment over us. They created the concept that, the states have the police power to regulate the health, safety, and morals of the people. Really? These are the private corporate code enforcers are the ones that are going to regulate our morals when they are, by definition, members of an entity that is set up to hurt people without liability, without personal liability to the ones that they're hurting.
And it still baffles me that people will call them law enforcers, because they're not enforcing laws. They're out there enforcing codes and statutes. Why don't they just call them code enforcers?
Yeah, good point. Codes are not law. They might resemble what was once God's law, and they're like everything Satan does. It's a perversion of something that God did and perverted to its own corporate purposes.
Catherine, Ron Armstrong commented, I think Catherine would enjoy Lysander Spooner's writings.
Oh, yeah.
I think you've shared something by Spooner to me before. You have.
Oh, yeah. I've got him right here, right behind me. Yeah, he's probably recognizing that a lot of what I say I've stolen from Lysander Spooner. Yeah. Every time I read him, I get something new. He was back in 1867. He was not in love with the Constitution. He was one of the very few who wasn't. He knew that there were maybe back in the day, maybe back in late 1770s, there was a feeling of, well, we're gonna self-govern, and we're gonna have we're not gonna cram government down anybody's throat the way the British have done to us, and then that concept just went away, and they did the very same things that they complained so loudly about that the British had been doing. They brought in the taxation. They brought in the warrantless searches and the seizures and the they came out and destroyed the people's common law is what they did. And they said, oh, but you'll like this better. We're going to give you a constitution. And yet the Constitution, and then while they were at it, the 1781 Constitution wasn't that bad. After all, don't we need to be together to form, a security force against, the Europeans that are going to invade us, and this group and that group? So we have to have a confederation, and that's what that was. The Articles of Confederation is another name for the 1781 Constitution, and that wasn't so bad. But that wasn't enough for them, for the ones that had delusions of grandeur, that they were going to rule over us just like King George had done. And they had to bring in the 1787 Constitution so they could grab some powers. And a lot of people didn't like that much. What was wrong with the 1781 Constitution? I think at that time, the former colonies were using their own script, currency, and they and their bankster friends didn't like that. So they had to bring in the 1787 Constitution, and then as a peace offering to the people, they enacted the Bill of Rights. We're going to take all these rights away from you, but we're going to give you some of them back again, and you will be happy. You won't have your God-given rights anymore. We'll be your God.
They seem to always know what will make us happy, right? They seem to,
right.
They know what'll make us happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to them to decide what'll make us happy, isn't it, Catherine?
Oh yeah, they're the solver of all problems, all of our problems, and the problems they solve are the ones they created.
Exactly.
So they should know. They should be in a really good position to know how to solve them since they created them. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm just. I got a little lecture today about not everything has a conspiratorial explanation.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. Well, at least I'm not getting. There is no such thing as a conspiracy. Oh, bad people, criminals don't get together and agree on a plan to rob a bank. That never happens, does it? So there's no such thing as a conspiracy. Anyway, but I encourage folks to not only join a common law assembly of some kind, a common law court, a common law grand jury, preferably ours if you're in Ohio, because we've already done a lot of the legwork. And if we had enough people for a common law grand jury, we wouldn't have to worry about these private code enforcers. Let them do what it is they do, and we can do what we do. And
Catherine, you've heard of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. That was from Ron.
Yeah. Is that like problem, reaction, solution?
That was Ron's comment.
Right. And that's my response. I think that's what it is, but I could be misinterpreting what that is. Oh, we didn't cover the public servant questionnaire. Have we ever done that on this broadcast?
I don't think we have. Do we have time to do that?
Yeah, just do it. Flash it on the screen and just because you went to all the trouble to get it all lined up right. This is a document that what is it, a 2-pager? I think we can get it onto 2 pages. That is a document for our so-called public servants. And I know there's people who carry copies of this public servant questionnaire in their cars so that if they're stopped, they can hand these to whoever the code enforcer is.
Can you see it up there, Catherine?
Let me look.
It's corporate government employee questionnaire for all employees of federal, state, county, municipal, and township corporations. Public Law 93-579 states in part, the purpose of this act to provide certain safeguards for an individual against invasion of personal privacy by requiring government agencies to permit an individual to determine what records, documents pertaining to him or her are collected, maintained, used, or disseminated by such agencies. The following questions are based upon that act, government prohibitions regarding identity theft and recognition of the corporate statutes that define your employment. Please fill out the form completely.
Okay. Yeah. It's going to make it a lot smoother to ask for the correct document for those who do document requests. I don't know that we need them, but we certainly are entitled to require our so-called public servants to give an account of themselves. Who are you? And what is it that you're looking at in your records that cause you to enter on my land or think you can stop me in my car or truck? So they want to ask us questions, but they've got it backwards. We're the ones that are entitled to ask them questions. They're the servants. We're the masters.
And they don't like that, do they?
No, they don't.
They do not like that.
So, yeah. And I recommend that people, maybe have a special box, a waterproof box next to their gate so that if they're about to be invaded, they can hand that. While they're collecting their thoughts, they can hand one of these questionnaires to whoever's wanting to trespass, and see the reaction. So anyway, they don't want to give information about themselves. We just had one of our not one of our court people, I think, because they knew better, but someone related to them had one of these code enforcers come, and she didn't have a public servant questionnaire, and it could have been very useful. Oh yeah, I know what I was going to say. What she didn't even, and they even know, they recognize we're entitled to know who it is, first and last names, and they like to put on their name tags. They like to put like J. Smith. Wait a minute, J. Smith. That's not a name.
Right.
That's an initial and a last name. Well, this guy who came onto her property didn't even have that. He had his name tag covered up by part of his clothing. Yeah, they do that. So don't let them get away with that. You're not going to deal with unknown people. Who knows? There's all kinds of folks out there that are masquerading as code enforcers, right? Aren't they? So you don't know who you're dealing with. They got to tell you who they are. So anyway, I have these public servant questionnaires for anybody who wants to get a copy and start printing them out. I recommend having them at your front gate, having them in your car, and be ready to require, is the word, to require the code enforcer to complete those and send them back. Yeah, you go complete that and send them back, and then I'll decide if I'm going to speak to you. Okay, well, thank you, Luciana, and thanks, Ron, and anybody else who's listening and has any input. And in between now and next Thursday, if you have any input as to what else we may want to address. I was thinking about next time addressing the original 13th Amendment, the Title of Nobility Amendment, TONA, and the massive amount of evidence there is. It was enacted. It was never repealed. It was ratified by the correct number of states. It never went away. It's still there, and it means bar members can't occupy positions of public trust. We'll talk about that more next time. Okay, well, thanks everybody, and we'll be back next week at the same time.
Thanks for your time, Catherine, always, and your knowledge. For those that don't know, and I try to mention this on every show, 'cause a lot of people don't know who you are. And Catherine is an attorney who resigned from the bar in the state of Ohio after 40 years in practice as a bar attorney. So she comes to us with a lot of knowledge of what's going on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about. And I thank you for bringing that knowledge to us, Catherine.
Well, and thank you for your technical expertise, without which we would not be here. So, okay. All right. We could sure use more help, folks. You want to help us? You know, there's information on how to contact us. I think on this on our website, and
I have your phone number and the court's email address on the screen.
Yeah. Okay.
And I shared your personal email as well earlier.
Right.
And there it is again. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we always thank you, everyone, and God bless you all. And we will see you all next Thursday, 9 o'clock. Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks, Luciana.